Hello, everybody. Welcome along to Glasgow Film Festival. It's always an absolute honour to be asked to come and be part of this fantastic festival and celebrate some incredible creative projects. And the one we're about to talk about is no exception. Hopefully some of you have just watched it. And it's my absolute pleasure to welcome along the director and the star of Never Give In, Sir Alex Ferguson and Jason Ferguson. Hello, gents.
Good morning.
Oh, listen, before we start into questions, and we have got some fantastic fan questions that have been submitted as well. Massive congratulations on this really powerful and emotional film. I had a few cries during the film, and euphoria as well going through this experience. So huge congratulations on your achievement. It's a beautiful and wonderful piece of work.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Listen, there must have been hundreds of offers over the years to make an authored documentary. I mean, there's been so many various films and documentaries and discussion pieces over the years, but when did you decide to make this film? Alec, if I can start with you, if that's okay.
Well, obviously, having retired, it was always going to be a request from quite a lot of people to do it. But I had no actually firm ideas about it until I met Andrew McDonald and John Batzik. And once they explained the project, and with their experience of doing many really top films, I think the answer was quite simple. I was ready to do it.
And I imagine that the idea of there being an authored film made about you, Jason, were you always going to direct it? Was that always going to be the idea?
No, not at all. In early 2016, we started doing audio interviews. We did that for about 18 months. And then the next stage was looking to put a team together, which is where Andrew and John and Alon came onto the scene. So we got to that stage. We were into 2018 by this point, and John and Andrew wanted a phone call one night and got on the phone, and John opened the call by saying, look, we've been thinking about directors, we've been talking, and we think you should do it. So that threw me a bit. But they'd been listening to the audio, and I think they felt I was best placed to get the most honest and open content from them. But it was a big call from them at the end of the day. But no, in the space of 24 hours, I went from not directing it to directing it.
How did that make you feel?
I was nervous at first, to be honest. I knew it was a big responsibility. I'm obviously approaching it from a background of never having directed a film. But I felt that if I had the support of the producers through it and we got the right team, that it was something I could tackle and handle.
Well, I think you've done an amazing job as well. And also, you know, I think as well in terms of the honesty that you've managed to pull out of everybody and out of the story as well, both in terms of your dad, but also, you know, the other contributors in the film as well. And I know for you, it was really important to make sure that they approached it with a real honesty as well, you know, in terms of what they were, the stories they were telling and really coming from a truthful place.
Yeah, I mean that's the intention for the film was always to have that personal, intimate feel to it, which is one of the reasons why the interviewees were kept quite low. I wanted to keep it to people that could offer something personal. You know, but yeah, I mean, once we got going, it was really all about focusing on who he is rather than the public perception of what he is.
Yeah, exactly. So that you started the film before the brain hemorrhage. Then basically, that was not that. This film is not a reaction to that. This is a story that you were starting to explore and tell before that happened. How did that then contribute or influence in terms of how you told the story? Jason, if you could start on that one.
Yeah, well, I mean, bizarrely, the phone call I referred to from Andrew and John, that was in May 2018, and I asked them for 24 hours to think about it. I got back on the phone the next night, told them I was up for it. And then that night I started work on my first draft of a treatment. I finished that about 1:30 in the morning, went to my bed, and then 5 hours later the phone rang, and it was my mum. And she said, your dad's had a fall. And that was the brain hemorrhage. Wow. So that obviously put things on hold for a while. But in relation to the film, ultimately it's one of the key moments of his life. So therefore it becomes one of the key moments of the film. But from a structural point of view, it brought another timeline, and it brought this whole theme around memories to the table.
Yeah. That was, I think it's like 3 minutes into the film where you hear the audio of the call that you made to 999. That was my first crying moment at the film. It's so emotional. Why was it important to incorporate that into the film, do you think?
I think if you're going to approach something and you are going to have these, you are going to have a focus on something being personal, something being intimate. It almost felt like it had to be there. It was very, yeah. It took a while to get hold of it. There's a lot of paperwork and so on, but it was very strange and a bit uncomfortable hearing it for the first time. But at the same time, you could, detach yourself enough to realise there's a certain sort of power to it.
Yeah. Alec, for you almost having to kind of relive that experience in a way, describing what you went through and how important these memories were to you. And it's a beautiful narrative throughout the film in terms of how our memories really make us the people that we are, and they help us become the people that we are. How was that for you, going reliving that experience in a way throughout this film?
Well, one of the first things I said the day after the operation, when the family came to see me, was my memory, because I've survived with having a great memory all my life. But the next week, Jake and Harvey came up to see me, and I lost my voice. Just cannot get a word out. And this was terrifying, absolutely terrifying. And everything was going through my mind of, is my memory going to be back? Am I ever going to speak again? And this speech therapist came and started working on me. And she started giving me questions, write down all the members of your family, all the members of your football team, all the teams that you played against, and then asked me questions about animals, fish, birds, and eventually after 10 days, my voice came back. And I realised then, having gone through all that, my memory was fine, because I was able to remember birds, fish, animals, everything.
Did you know when you said yes to the production team with this film, Alec, what you wanted it to be about? Did you know what you wanted the film to say at all?
No. That was down to the project that Jason and John and Andrew were working on. I was open to it, absolutely open to it, and simply that having agreed to do it, then is important that I was open to everything they wanted to do about the film, and held no bars in that. And so I think that was the correct thing to do. If you're going to do something, you want to do it correct, and you don't want to have a mask over it, that you're hiding things. I think it was very open.
Yeah. Did you have any editorial input at all throughout the process?
No chance. No. You're kidding.
I didn't know you got arrested. That was a new one that I learned about. Yeah. Oh.
It wasn't a director, a dictator.
Do you think it made it harder or easier that Jason was directing it for you? When that was told, when that was placed in front of you, did that make the idea of it easier for you or harder?
Do you know, Edith? I thought it was Jason should have done it in the first place. I never said anything about it. I left it entirely up to John and Andrew. If they chose a director, I was prepared to go along with it. But when Jason told me he was going to do it, I was I was delighted. I was delighted because I know he's got the talent. Yeah, he's really got the talent. And therefore, I felt much easier and trusted him that it could be done properly.
And I guess ask you the questions that other people couldn't.
Yeah, exactly. That is one way of putting it. I think that if you bring a director I never knew, there would certainly be a pause in terms of and some things that they wanted, whereas Jason knows me. So all the things he knew, where he was going to get the correct answers.
Yeah. The archive footage throughout the film is absolutely wonderful. It's so essential. It really places you and puts you in those situations, in those decades, in those areas. Jason, if I can ask you with regards to the archive and how you started that process of trying to find the visuals to accompany these amazing, you're talking about recording the audio with your dad, but making sure you could show these stories that he was talking about and these memories.
Yeah, I mean, I must say Paul Gardner and his team did an unbelievable job from an archive point of view. Yeah, I mean, if you take Glasgow, for example, so how I approached that was, that was where we started in terms of our first request for archive, apart from obvious football moments. So there was a lot of stuff coming in from Glasgow in the 40s, 50s and 60s. So what I would do is I would break that down, and then at the weekend I would go to see my dad, and then we would go through it. And the purpose of that was basically to ensure as much as possible that the Glasgow you're seeing on the screen is his Glasgow, and not just Glasgow in general. So, I mean, from shots of back courts to football pitches to, across the board, really, it was ensuring that we were painting his memories with what visually matched.
Even the things like the dancing and the pub and all that kind of stuff, you almost feel like as you're talking about it, Alec, you feel like you're almost walking in the rooms, in those actual rooms that you were in. It's so kind of beautifully kind of put together. Was that wonderful to see for you?
Oh, it's fantastic. I mean, it's to go back into where it all began, and how what an input in your life it was. I mean, people say, what do you think of your background and your how you're brought up? These are the moments you wish you could go back to. I'd love to have gone back to those days, but it's not to be. The Glasgow of my time is gone, but nonetheless, the memories are still there. Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit about the footage of you in the Apprentice March, because that was properly like, whoa. And Jason, there's an amazing story, isn't there, behind that particular bit of footage being discovered?
Yeah, well, obviously we'd have regular meetings in the edit suite with the archive team, and in one of those meetings I was like, look, there was an apprentice strike in Glasgow in April 1960. Can you find anything on it, whether it's newspaper reports, stills, anything? And then about 3 or 4 weeks later, I got a text from Andres, and I opened it and it was a photograph, and it was a still of that shot. And I looked at it, and it said, I think I've found him. And I looked at it and I thought, nah, that's not him. So I because he's got this fringe. So I sent it on to my dad. 10 seconds later, the phone rings. Where did you get that? And I was like, what? And he was like, that's me. And then he was naming the other people in the shot.
Wow.
But even at that point, he thought it was a still. He didn't realize it was moving pictures. He didn't see that till much further down the line. But that was of all the, there was quite a few key moments archive coming in. But that would be top of the list.
Oh, how did that make you feel when you saw it, Alec, for the first time, that little bit of video?
Oh, I was absolutely startled. I couldn't believe, where did this come from? Because I'd never seen this before. But the most important thing about it was I was so proud. There's moments in your life when you say, I did something really worthwhile. And these days, a lot of apprentices were married very young and had families. I brought them out on strike because they needed to get better conditions throughout Scotland. It was all over. The strike became a national strike, and we were out for months. But the important thing was we got better conditions for these apprentices. Because for myself, I was part-time at football, Edith. I didn't need the money. I was getting paid as a part-time footballer. So I was getting, I think it was £14 a week or something. It was a big salary then. Whereas apprentices were on maybe £4 a week or £5 a week. And so that's what I was really proud, being able to create a situation where the apprentices were paid better conditions.
Well, I think all these kind of moments that we see of your character, you know, it's just I think the film is a fantastic character study of you and the way that through your stories, Jason's been able to find these moments that are almost the building blocks to the man that you became, in terms of how you really kind of you stuck in, and you had a decision that you made and you stuck by it, but you also had things you wanted to achieve and you went there and you achieved them. There are all these amazing building blocks that we see along the way throughout your life. Did you watch the film transformed throughout the process, or did you wait until it was finished to see the final thing put together?
No, I waited because I didn't ask if I could see it. I was in other people's hands, but not really. I think it was important that I waited till the final edition came out, and I must say, it was a powerful moment, because, as you had said, I was nearly crying. I really did. I was various parts of that film. I felt really emotional. And, you know, it was a fantastic piece of work. It really was. For all the team, they were absolutely brilliant.
It's, I mean, I said at the start that I found it so, I had 3 or 4 moments where I was bawling my eyes out, and then you're suddenly swept into this euphoria and celebration of things. It's the tone of it and the emotion of the film are just absolutely extraordinary. And also just seeing and hearing Kathy talk as well, and the strength of her and how important she's been in your journey as well, I think is just a beautiful thing to be celebrated within the film as well.
Oh, well, it's a tribute to her also. I mean, 56 years of marriage. 54 years. I can't
Don't
remember.
get it wrong.
It's one of those.
Use a number, use the right one.
1966. 1966. 55 years.
With this pandemic, no one has idea what year it is anyway, so you're fine. You'll get let off with that one for sure. I love as well that there's a couple of moments that you're singing in that film as well, which I love to see as well. Those couple of little moments where you're singing, whether it's Pack Up Your Troubles or that little moment where you come in the office as well when you're almost being peaked upon singing. It's brilliant. Jason, can we talk a little bit about the edit though, because I can't imagine where you started actually in an edit suite with this, in terms of, I mean, how many hours of audio footage did you have? And then had you already started filming the kind of visual parts with your dad, you know, those interview moments as well? Where did you start?
Well, we started day one in the edit suite with 70 odd hours of audio, a mountain of transcripts, and myself and a brilliant editor in Gregor Lang did an unbelievable job. We had no footage at that point. We hadn't filmed anything. We had no archive. And then ultimately, over the period of the time in the edit, we built up to, we had about 550 hours of footage in the end. I had over 500 hours of archive. But from the point of view of the starting point, myself and Gregor, we just went through everything, kept talking, you know, trying to work out what were the key moments in his life and what did they say about him.
Yeah. Was it easy to work out what the narrative of the film was going to be, in terms of, you know, you came on as director the night before this, the day before this, you know, this kind of life-changing event happened to your dad. But in terms of what you wanted to make the film about, was that something you discovered whilst you were in the edit?
Well, I mean, I referred to the first draft of a treatment the night before the brain hemorrhage, and the central theme of that treatment was how I view him. That he's not defined by all the success he's had. That I strongly believe he's defined by how he's dealt with adversity in his life, both personally and professionally. So that was like one of the key foundations for the whole film. And with the brain hemorrhage then occurring, that obviously becomes an extension of that. But what it then gave us was it gave us two timelines, really. We had the chronology of his life, and then we had the story of the health, and we were going to bounce between them. There were other certain elements that I knew, or we worked out in the edit quite quickly, where they were going to be placed, opening with a brain hemorrhage and the 999 call. When we knew he was going back to Old Trafford for the first time, I thought that the moment when he walked out would probably be the last shot of the film, which it was. And then I knew that Barcelona would be the culmination of the sort of football element of the film. From my point of view, I know that he managed for a period after that, but that moment he's climbed the mountain. Ultimately, for me, those 3 minutes represent his key philosophies, in terms of rebuilding teams, faith in young people, and never giving in. That, to me, is all encapsulated in that 3 minutes.
Before we move on to these brilliant audio audience questions, fan questions, just want to mention Andrew Phillips, who you got to do the music in the film, because I think the music in the film is fantastic, and it's so in keeping with it just adds so much to it. It's brilliant.
Yeah, I did a brilliant job. Brilliant job.
Amazing.
I will say Gregor really took the lead in terms of the music side of things, because the other thing we had on day one is he brought in some guide music. And I'd not gone through that process before, so I was happy for Gregor to take the lead, and then come in with broader comments as we moved along. But he's done an unbelievable job. There's a moment towards the end of the film when we come back to him going to Old Trafford for the first time after the brain hemorrhage, and when we cut to there's a drone shot of the exterior of Old Trafford. There's a note there that just cuts me in half every time I watch it. But yeah, he did a brilliant job, as so many people did on this film.
Okay, I'm going to park you to one side for a second, if that's all right, Jason, because we've got a load of fan questions, and I'm going to try and get through as many of these as we can in the time that we've got. But thank you to everybody for sending these things in. First one, Alec, is from Andrew, who says, Sir Alec, when growing up in Scotland, did you ever think that football would be your chosen path in life? Was it always something that you wanted to be your life? Thank you for all you've done for MUFC, by the way, he says.
Well, I speak for every young boy in Govan and Glasgow that growing up, the only thing you had was football. Football every day. That was the way it was. I mean, there was nothing else in my life. That there's a lot of areas in Britain where the cricket players, the rugby players, but in Govan, the only thing that mattered was playing football. And every day in my life was about playing football. No doubt about it.
Mauro Ballardini, Scottish people doing foreign names is always terrible, but I've tried my best, says, what was your mentality as a young footballer, and how did your mindset change, or did it change when you became a manager?
No. My mindset every time I played a game of football was to win. That was the only thing that mattered. It was a winning aspect of it all the time. And I think it's just a natural thing for me. That was my upbringing was a lot to do with that. But the important thing was as the inner, determination that when I entered the field to play, it was to win. So there was nothing else mattered. Of course, it's not just all about winning, it's to play and enjoy it too. But every young kid enjoyed playing their football, everyone. But, the added thing was to win. And that was part of me. That was definitely part of me.
Lucas asks, firstly, thank you for everything you've done for our wonderful club, and it's so great to see you back at games again and in good health. Apart from obvious talent, what was the main personality trait that you looked for in players?
Well, I think that it can be divided into maybe a few parts in terms of there are some players I had were absolute natural footballers with natural talents, but there are other players who shared my determination, who maybe weren't the best players, but they made themselves the best players because they had something inside them too. And I think that I go back to one of my first defeats as a manager at 32 years of age. I didn't expect it. I went into the game with eyes wide open that this was going to be easy. We lost 5-2 to Albion Rovers. I was the manager of East Stirling. Only, plays around £5 a week or something like that. And I came home that night and I said, well, if I don't get Alex Ferguson in my team, I'm not going to succeed. So I made sure that my players had a mental toughness about them from that moment on.
This next one is from Dr. Reb Shep, who says, out of many successful public figures, it's always seemed to me that you have incredible instincts. Do you believe in intuition?
I believe in instinct. I had a good instinct about players. I had a good instinct about watching players who I maybe wanted to buy. And I knew that looking at certain players that I could see traits that told me they were Manchester United players, or they were Aberdeen players, or they were St Mirren players. I could see that in certain players I watched. So instinct was really important. Also an instinct that sometimes that picking a team, we're playing maybe certain teams, I say, I've an instinct, I've got something about this game that I'm not going to play certain players or play other players. And I wouldn't say it's intuition, I would say it's instinct.
Brilliant, thank you. And I love this question from Dev B. Hatia. How did you not get bored of being successful? Such a great question. How did you manage to reset your mindset at the end of each season to go on and continue to achieve?
Well, the alternative is enjoying and be. That was not part of my life. Listen, if you, I can encapsulate in this way. If I'm going to walk into the training ground at Carrington as a manager of Manchester United, and I look out on that football field and I see this fantastic training ground, why wouldn't I want to go in there every day?
Yeah.
And the only way you can do that is being successful. So being bored, I was never bored in my life about anything.
Amazing. This one's from Hussein, who says, what's your biggest regret, if you have any, whilst managing United? And if you could go back, would you do anything different?
Well, there are always sort of regrets, but the thing is always to look forward. Tomorrow's another day. I always did well when we lost a game. The next day I was better, without question. But in terms of the regret of, for instance, the 94 team I had, the back four all seemed to grow old together. And that's a terrible thing to happen to the manager, because these guys were fantastic for me. Parker, Bruce, Pallister, Irwin, fantastic players. Gave me 9-10 years. And I had to do my... See, the evidence is always in the football field. They don't see it. I see it. And the problem for me is, what do I do about it? But I managed to organise moves for them, and they did well out of it. But telling them that is very, very difficult. And the same with you having to let young players go.
Yeah.
So the process was the youth coach and the welfare chap would come in with the player you're going to let go. Maybe he's only 17, 18 years of age. And the way we'd explain is we're trying to get him a team. We're trying to get him a club. And we're sorry having to do this. It's terrible. That is the worst thing, having to let a young player go. Because all his ambitions and hopes and desires are about playing for Manchester United in front of 75,000 people, are going to Wembley in the final. That's the ambition of every young kid that comes to Manchester United. And when you take that away from him, it's a sore thing. So I hated that. I
bet. Talking of young people, this is a great question. We've got a couple more questions, if that's all right. This is from My Quiet Nature. Hi, Sir Alex. We have a grandson who has shown an astonishing aptitude with a ball at his feet since before he could walk properly. My question is, what advice would you give to the parents of this now 5-year-old United fan on how to encourage him in the right way?
Well, there's several things I would say to the parents, and not to obsess yourself in the boy. I think you allow him to grow, and the important thing for the boy is to have a practice ethic. To practice all the time is a great step forward in terms of you want to be a football player. And if you get to the stage where you've got a chance, then the really important thing then is sacrifice. If you're going to be a top footballer, you have to sacrifice. Everything else outside, whatever your pals are doing on a Friday night, you're not doing. And if you have that sacrifice, mode inside you, you've given yourself a better chance. And also that combined with the practice ethic gives you a better chance.
Great, we're going to watch this space for this 5-year-old. Amazing. And then we've just got 2 more. What's your favourite memory of United fans?
Oh, the day we won the league for the first time. God almighty. I couldn't go to the car park. There was thousands of them. I went there in the afternoon because they wanted a photograph taken with the trophy. And I went there about 3 o'clock. Thousands there. I couldn't go in my car. They were engulfing me. It was unbelievable. So what you were doing that day was satisfying the anxiety and the relief of 26 years. That's what I was doing that day. These supporters have been suffering for 26 years, and then finally that day, they showed their love for me that particular day. They could have been the president that day.
Wow. Oh, every hair on my arm just stood on end with that. Oh, right. Last question from Mr. Stephen Howson, who says, was there any point in your time at United where you seriously doubted you'd be able to achieve what you'd set out to do?
Well, I don't say it's doubt. I think that there was periods in which you threw a spell of not winning games. In 1989, in December, never won a game. But, I was brought up in a working class background. That giving in or having doubts never ever surfaced within me. I was always positive about where I was going. I would look at all my training notes, my team selections, and the next day was always going to be better for me. So the doubts came from other people, not from me.
Right. Never give in. There we go. Jason, welcome back into the room, please.
Hello.
Listen, thank you both for taking the time to come and join us here to talk about the film. Thank you so much for the film, because I loved it, and I can't wait to watch it with my mum and dad as well, because I know it's going to be an amazing journey for them as well. And it's so great to see you both. Alec, it's great to see you looking so well, and that wee twinkle in your eyes still there, which is great to see. Thank you so much for your time today, and
Thanks,
much love
Edith.
to you both, and stay safe.
Well done, Edith.
And
Well done,
thanks to the
Edith.
Glasgow Film Festival. It means
you.
a lot to both of us that
Yeah.
this film is premiering there. It means a lot to us. So thanks
Absolutely.
very much, and thanks, Edith.
Well done, Edith.
Bye-bye.
Bye.